Iron Faerie VTOL Instruction Manual. Startup procedure. Stage 3 times. Press 1 to get into VTOL mode. Press 2 to get into flight mode. Press Z to set your throttle to max. Press T to activate SAS for stability assist. The brake symbol activates and deactivates air brakes. The landing gear button deactivates and activates landing gear, as well as the flaps. Flaps increase lift by a lot, and you can use this while flying to increase your turn rate at the cost of airspeed. This may also be activated by pressing G on the keyboard. Press backspace to toggle afterburners. If you've never flown a VTOL before, you may be unused to the control scheme. Unlike moon landers, Q and E is used to roll instead of A and D. This is because the orientation is still the same as a normal jet. This may take some time to get used to, otherwise you'll probably find yourself crashing a lot. When attempting to land and take off, I recommend using SAS or stability assist, but is not actually required to land this. When fully loaded, it requires afterburners to take off vertically, but when it's empty, it does not. When using a VTOL in Kerbal Space Program, airspeed is controlled using pitch controls instead of throttle control. Throttle control is used to maintain altitude. It is generally easier to land if you line up the approach before you get over the target. You can then use pitch control to fly over and slowly make your way down to the landing spot. If your approach is good, then the second you touch down, press X to throttle down your engines. If you are taking off in a very short period of space, leave your landing gear extended until you have enough airspeed to fly without flaps. Because the aircraft is stable while flying forwards, it cannot get too much reverse airspeed, otherwise the tail will catch the air and spin you around. This is not usually a massive problem, but it can cause a crash if you are not aware of this. If you start to lose control, press R to turn on your RCS thrusters. Action keys 4 through 0 fire the guided missiles. They must be fired in numerical order to prevent unwanted explosions. While in normal flight mode, missiles are controlled with WAS and D, similar to a normal plane. Normal flight mode is accomplished by pressing 1 or 2, basically the normal VTOL or normal flight mode. There is an additional flight mode which is dedicated to controlling missiles, which I will explain later. For now, I recommend not using VTOL mode to fire missiles, as it is quite hard. When you fire a missile, your plane loses all control. This is to prevent you from flying your plane and the missile into the ground at the same time. In order to regain control over your plane, press 1 or 2 to activate whatever mode you were previously in. I will now go over the VTOL missile mode. This lets you control missiles while the SAS control your plane. This prevents your plane from spinning out of control while you are trying to control the missile. It is not perfect though, and honestly, it's not very good. Press 3, and then press T to activate SAS, and then set your SAS to radial in. This will prevent your plane from crashing. To control your plane's orientation in this mode, press R to activate RCS, and then use Q and E to control your plane's orientation. The missiles are controlled in a similar manner, except instead of WASD to control the missiles, you use QEWS. Q turns the missile to the left, E turns it to the right, and then WS control pitch, like normal. You must turn RCS off in order to fire missiles without it destabilizing your plane. Even if you follow all of these instructions, the plane may still fly out of control in this mode. This is due to the nature of the glitch I used to achieve this plane's performance. It is basically not possible to fix, unfortunately. I recommend that you always fire missiles while in flight mode, or at least with a little bit of forward momentum. The following is an explanation of why ghost tech causes instability. Whenever SAS is directly controlling your plane and ghost tech is in play, if there is a disconnected part and it suddenly turns, SAS will believe that the craft is turning in the opposite direction and will make inputs to counter that. This causes instability in your craft whenever a heavy object makes any sort of radial movement. The SAS will try to provide an equal and opposite reaction, but it can never actually compensate because the part in question is not attached to the main body of the aircraft. In this situation, the problem was caused because I was using RCS. However, this situation does sometimes happen without RCS enabled. Another example of why you should turn RCS off before firing in this flight mode. Right here I was trying to find the little thermometer I put in the nose to right click on it and then set it to aim camera. I removed this in the newest version because you can just click on the nose and then aim the camera at the nose in order to have a first person view. Here I attempted to fire 2 AGMs in first person view. I don't actually know what happened here. They should have just been clearly visible. In this clip, I'm basically just showing you that it's possible to fly it without SAS turned on. Anyways, this entire thing is possible because there is a glitch in the game which lets parts be physically disconnected while still being part of the same craft. This allows fuel to be transferred, as well as control, electricity, etc. It's a little bit glitchy though, and some people's computers are not able to handle it without crashing. I'm not really sure why that is, because my computer can handle it just fine, and it's not the most powerful thing in the world. If you add any non-physicalist part to this plane, make sure that it is set to auto strut heaviest, otherwise it may weaken the entire airframe. Also, inside the plane there are 2 cubic struts. One has 2 communotron antennas that are attached to each other, and the other has 2 communotron antennas that are detached from each other. Any part you place onto the cubic strut that has 2 antennas that are next to each other, like touching each other, will stay as a part of the main aircraft. Any non-physicalist part you put onto the cubic strut that has the 2 antennae that are detached from each other will become a separate entity once you destroy the decoupler when you stage the craft for the first time. That is just how this glitch works. I'm not really sure exactly why that happens, but it's just something we figured out. If you want to make serious modifications to this craft, you do need a pretty heavy amount of knowledge about how bench tech works. I'm not really going to go into super detail about it in this video. I may make a tutorial later. Also, if you remove the Weasley jet engine, you must put another part that is at least 1.2 tons onto the main airframe. If you do not do this, then the engines will be the heaviest part, and all the parts will auto-strut to the main engine, and this will prevent them from turning when you try to set it to VTOL mode. Another thing, this part cannot be a fuel tank, because once it empties itself, the auto start will change back to the Panther engines. So basically the dry weight has to be at least 1.2 tons. If you have any questions or need any assistance, just send me a comment in YouTube and I'll try to help you out. Another kind of important thing, try not to fire the missiles while aiming up. If the missiles get too far away from the craft, the controls get really glitchy, even after you press 2. So try to make sure that all of your missiles get destroyed pretty quickly. If you accidentally misfire a missile into the sky, you can temporarily regain control by just hitting the next missile and then pressing 2 immediately, or 1, whatever flight mode you're in. Basically, when you fire one missile, the previous missile gets disconnected, and that should prevent that glitch from occurring. But if you're aimed into the sky, then the next missile is still going to cause that glitch anyway. The plane can take off and land like a normal aircraft as well. It's very floaty, especially when it's dry, and that's why I call it the Iron Faerie. There's also a non-weaponized version of this craft called the Faerie. It's a lot more simple to use, just because you don't have to worry about the missiles, and it's got a few less parts. However, the flight controls remain the same. The faster you go, the less responsive the missiles are. So you have to be more accurate when you're going really fast. This also means that if you're going really slow, you can hold W, A, S, or D to get a lot of deflection out of your missiles to hit really far away targets. As you can see here, the last missile decided to fly upwards. This caused the crash of my aircraft. I have no more action keys left to decouple the last missile. However, reviewing the footage, I probably could have just pressed space and it would have been fine. Here the camera goes wild because the main aircraft gets destroyed, but the missiles are still in flight. Since the missile's still part of the main craft, the camera flies towards it until it gets destroyed, and then the camera flies back to the wreckage. This concludes the Iron Faerie tutorial. I will upload a video of it flying around the mountains though, because I think it's pretty cool. Here you can see that I lose a wing and almost lose control. If you lose a wing in this aircraft, reduce your airspeed as much as possible, hit brakes. When you hit the brakes, the spoilers on the other wing will extend and reduce its lift, which will help you regain control. Also, activate RCS immediately to gain as much control as possible. It is usually possible to land this plane without one wing. Here, I intentionally destroyed the other wing in order to balance the lift. It worked fairly well, actually. Here I attempted to get back to the VAB faster by engaging time warp. As you can see, this aircraft is not really compatible with physical time warp, and it tends to destroy itself. I managed to bring it down safely, although it would not be able to fly again. It has very strange properties while stalling because its fuselage is actually made out of lifting body parts turned sideways.